Okay, thank you. Dr. Gopalakrishnan, an alumnus of this institute, to our midst, and he's going to give you a talk. Okay, so I'd like to have our induction program chairman, Dr. Priyadarshi Patnaik, say a few words to start the program, and then we'll have a formal introduction to him. Before we do that, may I request Ayantika and Vineet, on behalf of 2017 batch IIT Kharagpur, to give floral bouquets to both Dr. Patnaik, to Dr. Gopalakrishnan and to Dr. Patnaik. Thank you. By the time they graduate, they will be conducting these events, okay? So they're learning. All right. I'd like to now invite Shrishti from VG Som to introduce our speaker to you. Shrishti.
A very good evening to all of you. It gives us immense pleasure to extend a warm welcome to Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan, the CEO of MindWorks and the former director of Tata Sons Limited. Welcome, sir. Mr. Gopalakrishnan obtained his BSc Honours degree in Physics from Xavier's College, Calcutta University, and BTech Honours in Electronics from our very own IIT Kharagpur in 1967, an Advanced Management program from Harvard Business School, United States. He has lived and worked in India, the UK, and Saudi Arabia. During his years with Unilever, he was the CEO of Arabia unit, post which he was the managing director of the Brook Bond Lipton India and then vice chairman with Hindustan Lever. He has also authored some best-selling books such as What the CEO Really Wants from You and Sharpening Lenses Through Six Senses, to name a few. With such a vast experience and knowledge base, Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan definitely brings an unmatched value to the table. So without any further ado, I would now request you, sir, to please share your valuable insights with the batch. Thank you.
Okay, good evening to everybody. I'm very envious of you guys. I wish I was a freshman in IIT Kharagpur. I get very emotionally involved when I come to Netaji Auditorium. I've had many interesting experiences here. And so I feel very good being here. And I want to thank those who arranged this program to give me one more opportunity to be at Netaji Auditorium. I think while I have also seen movies, you still have movies here once in every second Sunday or something. The one occasion I remember was 1966. It's exactly 51 years ago when I became the vice president of the Students' Gymkhana. And we had some program. And there was some hooliganism or misbehavior by the students. It wasn't the first time it happened, neither was it the last time. But as the vice president, I somehow felt this urge, which I could not suppress, that I should speak to the students. And I got up and did something very dramatic, standing approximately here on this auditorium. But I think this auditorium is a bit smaller in those days, na? Somehow it looks a bit bigger. But it was packed up and full. And I said something or the other that brought a deadly silence to the auditorium. And that was one of my lessons I learned. That when you have to say something which is ethical or moral, then you have to say it, whatever the effect may be. Because there's a timing to rightness also in life. Doing the right thing a little later doesn't help. So people who keep quiet when they should speak, people who don't register their alternate point of view at the time a bad incident is happening. People who don't help an accident victim when the accident has happened. These are also issues of ethics and morality. And at that time, there were some girl students doing some dance here, and there was some behavioral problem. I felt that I had to get up and speak. And that's one episode that I remember very well from 1966, which always comes back to my mind. Later on, my friends asked me, what gave you the courage to stand up and do that? Because you're talking to your own friends, you know. I said, I never thought of it as courage. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. It also taught me a lesson in life, which I will always associate with Netaji Auditorium. I missed the convocation. I didn't come for the convocation. But then I was invited to be the chief guest for your convocation about 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. So that is the second time I came to Netaji Auditorium. And it was a great privilege and pleasure. I've done many convocation addresses in many places. But if you're in your own home turf, your own pada, as they say, then it's a very different experience. So my first wish for all of you is that 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now, some of you should be able to talk here to those who are at that time 20 years of age. And share whatever journey you have been through in your life with younger people. I want to sort of share one or two things that I have learned as I went along. I don't know whether all of you agree with me, but you're darn lucky. You're really lucky people to be here. You may call it luck. You may call it merit. You may call it God. But call it what you will. You are a one in 10,000 students who applied to IIT who's got it. I don't know what the number is nowadays. It used to be 8,000 in my days. Maybe it's 10,000 now. And I don't know whether as young people you believe in luck or not. But at my age, you say there is something called luck in life. And luck is what you have not earned. There is two types of luck. Earned luck and unearned luck. When it's earned luck, then we take possession of it. So if I have studied very hard, I got a scholarship to the best university in America, I've gone to America, I don't consider it luck. I said, मैंने मेहनत किया है. I got a very good CGPA score. I did very well in IIT Kharagpur. ये मेरा, I deserve it. We become human and believing in forces outside ourselves when we are the recipients of unearned luck. And I'll give you two examples of unearned luck. Mr. A and Mr. B are both very good candidates to be the CEO of the company. Both have a fantastic track record. Both close hai. Then 3 months before the final decision, Mr. B gets a heart attack. So Mr. A becomes the CEO. Mr. A and B have both worked very hard. But it's B who got the heart attack and A got the job. He deserved it, but did he get a bit of unearned luck? Is a question that is worth thinking about. Since the job of a CEO and so on may seem a bit distant to you, I'll take one other example which you may be aware of. How many of you here play badminton or follow badminton? Quite a few. I ask you to recall what happened in 2012 when the London Olympics was going on. Sorry? Yeah. I'm not testing your general knowledge. But do you remember that India had nothing, not even a bronze medal? Okay, many days had gone, and there was a lot of newspaper coverage. India is useless. You should stop going to um, Olympics, and a lot of money is being wasted by the sports ministry. All the usual charcha was going on in the newspaper. Then this girl from Hyderabad, Saina Nehwal, came to the semi-finals, and she played a Chinese girl in the semi-final. Any of you remember her name, the Chinese girl? All right. It doesn't matter that I can't hear you clearly, but there was a Chinese girl, and what the name is not material to the story. And the newspapers were full of this. India's come. India's moment has come. You know, whenever somebody becomes a CEO in California, they say India has broken through. हो गया है, भारत पहुंच गया है. एक cricket match जीत गया तो एकदम our newspapers go gaga. So Saina is going to win in the semi-finals, then she'll go to the finals, and if she wins, then India will get a gold. इसमें इतना newsprint खत्म हो गया. अर्नब गोस्वामी का भी गला खराब हो गया. Saina was in the semi-finals. She not even qualified for the bronze medal. And she was playing with the Chinese girl. She lost the first game. Am I right, badminton fans? She lost it by a reasonable margin, if I remember right, by 5 or 6 points. She played very well, but so did the Chinese girl. Then in the last point of the first game, the Chinese girl jumped up high because the shuttlecock was coming. She smashed it. She won the point, but she fell and twisted her foot. Do you remember this? She hobbled off to the side of the court. Then the massage fellow came and did something. Chinese girl came back to play the second game, and she just couldn't stand. And she conceded the match. And Saina won that match and went into the finals. So India was assured of something. And I asked myself the question, is it earned luck or unearned luck? Yeah, but Saina Nehwal may not agree. She will say, मैंने बहुत मेहनत किया है. So it depends on whose point of view you take. But it's a bit like that A and B gets a heart attack and A gets the job easily. So there is something called unearned luck that comes your way. And I'm not arguing whether you have earned luck or unearned luck that you're in IIT, and in IIT Kharagpur at that. But it is a product of many chances which has brought you here. So the first thing I would like to say, and I believe all of you are freshers, that means all of you will be here for 5 years, correct? 4 or 5 years. Yes or no? At least your intention is to be here for 4 or 5 years. Use this luck. And in saying use this luck, there are 3 things that you have to improve. You have to work upon, which is why your parents, your well-wishers, God, you name whichever one you like, have conspired to give you this luck to come here. You have to improve first your knowledge. Second, you have to improve yourself. And the third is you have to improve your relationships. Now this is very simple to hear, but very complex to practice. I want you to listen carefully. Improving your knowledge is why you came here. So somebody says, IIT mein kyun gaya? To I want to study mechanical engineering, computer science. You came, a certain pedagogy will be given to you by your teachers. Your teachers do the same thing year after year. Or what looks like the same thing. I'm sure they improve the teaching pedagogy and so on, but they see people coming and going every year. They are the constant people here. But there's a certain love that they give you, which you don't quite absorb. After 20 years, if you achieve something, your teachers will say, I remember that kid, he or she was in my class, and he was a good student or a bad student, as the case may be. Teachers are like trees. They give the fruit to whoever comes under the tree, but they never expect anything back in return. Trees never asked you, कि मेरा apple वापस दो और इसकी कीमत दो. तुम एप्पल खा के तुम्हारा सेहत अच्छा हो गया तो इट्स अ गुड थिंग. And teachers are like trees. His job of the tree is to produce fruit and give shade. Students are pilgrims who come, they sit under the tree, they eat a fruit, they enjoy the shade, and then they carry on. And it's only the tree that knows who all sat under its shade. So I think it's a great privilege to acquire knowledge, and the key karta for this, the key instrument for this, are your teachers and your faculty. I used to be very possessive about my acquisition of knowledge. I studied what was called ECE at that time. You still have an ECE department? Electronics and Communication Engineering. Professor Rakit used to be the head of the department. Professor Sanyal was a professor. And they introduced an elective called Computer Science. Now, this is back in 1965 or 66. Somehow it looked sexy to me. Computer Science. I had never seen a computer in my life. It was only 14 years before that William Shockley got the Nobel Prize for the semiconductor. So it was very, very recent. And some of us were attracted that, yaar, padhna hai to kuch cutting edge ka padho, kal ki cheez padho. So that's how I joined ECE. And I took my elective as computer science, which was one of the electives. The second one was servo mechanisms. I remember the names of both the subjects, but not the content of what I was taught, regrettably. After so many years, I have forgotten it. And when I graduated, the problem arose, कि नौकरी क्या मिलेगा? Because you have to think back how 1966, 67, it was a very different India from what it is today. And I don't want to bore you telling you how India was at that time. The short line is there was no campus recruitment, and each one had to fend for himself or herself. And because I was the vice president of the Gymkhana, I was so busy with the Spring Festival that I never applied to US universities. All my other friends were busy doing GRE and GMAT and all that sort of stuff. Come January, people were saying I've got admission into Michigan, and Vinod Gupta, my batchmate, had got admission somewhere, Farooq Mistry had got admission somewhere. Various people were planning, and I was without a job or a ticket to America. Then Professor Sanyal called me and said, would you like to apply for a Rotary additional fellowship? So I said, साहब Rotary है तो कुछ पैसे वैसे मिलेंगे, and नाम भी अच्छा लगता है. I can spend the rest of my life saying I'm an additional Rotary fellow or a Rotary additional fellow. इसका क्या कायदा कानून क्या है? The कायदा कानून to be an additional fellow of the Rotary was you should go to university where nobody has ever been before. हम बोला ये तो बड़ी चीज है. No other Indian has been before, not no other human being. So I looked up which are the US universities where no other Indian has ever been before. And obviously Columbia and Carnegie Mellon and Stanford, Massachusetts were all out. A lot of Indians had, not lot of, but several had been there. The one that popped up on my screen was Slippery Rock University. I've forgotten it was in Ohio or Oklahoma, but it started with a big goal. And I said to myself, यार इतनी मेहनत करने के बाद हमको Slippery Rock University में जाना है. This IIT Kharagpur itself is a slippery rock. यहाँ से बच के वहाँ पे क्यों जाएंगे? It's better to look for a job. So I looked for a job. But the only jobs I could go to were companies like Philips or Atomic Energy Establishment. I had done my summer internship. All this will happen to you in 4 or 5 years' time. So I'm telling you the story. I got bored stiff in atomic energy very, very bored with what they were doing. Rightly or wrongly, I was young, I was go-go. I said, whatever I do, I don't want to work in this place. Maybe I made a mistake, but that was my mindset. I was only 20, 21. And I saw Philips. and imagine what kind of a job I'll get, because I had done my summer placement in Nelco. I said, this is not what I want to do. Sit on a production line with soldering irons and smelling the smoke. This doesn't appeal to me. I said, I've studied computer science. Humko computer karna hai. But there were only 2 computers in the whole of India. Now, I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. You can check the records. If I remember right, there was an IBM 1401 in Tata Steel here in Jamshedpur. And I think there was an IBM 1620 in TIFR. I don't think there was any other computer in the whole of India. And somehow it looked sexy to me. Instead of going to university where no Indian has gone, let me go into a field where not many Indians are there, so computer science. And as the technology students Gymkhana president, vice president, I was allowed to sit in this. It is now changed into something else. It used to be the Gymkhana office on the Scholars Avenue. We had a small Gymkhana office, and you had a typewriter there. That was the only privilege I had. I could use the typewriter. I found a job advertisement from Hindustan Lever saying they are looking for computer analysts. Hindustan Lever looked like a reasonable company. And I said, apply kar lete hain. I applied. I still remember the date. You see, when you get to my age, you realize that you remember all irrelevant things and don't remember the really irrelevant things. I remember my teachers, but not what they taught me. Right? So, I remember some irrelevant data. 8th of January 1967. I see this ad. They want computer analysts, they want first class degree holders in engineering, preferably computer science. I said, ye Bhagwan ne banaya hai. This ad has been written for me. So wo typewriter mein lagaya, carbon paper. I still got a copy of it. I wrote something, I sent it off, saying, abhi Spring Festival ke chakkar pe lago phir. Bingo, I get an advertisement saying, I get a reply saying, come and have an appear for an interview in Ilako House in Calcutta. Now, those of you who are from Calcutta and old Calcutta would know Ilako House, Dalhousie Square. It's the fairly place. These are the sort of places of mercantile excellence. They even gave me my first class fare. Humko tab tak third class ka hi anubhav tha. But I got a first class fare to go to Calcutta. But when I went there, it was the LIC building, Ilako House. There was lots of boards. Down with the management. You know, union stuff going on. Jyoti Basu was coming up in life as a union leader. Because the Hindustan Lever staff were agitating against computers. They said, this will take away our jobs. And I said, yaar, aisi company mein bade mushkil se company nikala, lekin I can't work with these guys. You know, good babus who were sitting there. Spotlessly white dhoti, Punjabi. But every word they uttered was full of spots. Anyway, we went through some interview process. I won't go into the detail of it. And I came back. And a few days later, I was called to Bombay. I said, this is getting from damn good. I'm in luck. But meanwhile, my Spring Festival was going out of control because the stage hadn't come up and some lighting fellow hadn't turned up. But I had to go to Bombay because naukari tha, 650 rupiya ka tankha tha. Now I know most of you will think 650 rupiya mein kya hai, dal chal nahi milta hai, but in those days 650 was a hell of a lot of money. Probably one of the best paid salaries in 1966-67. And here again I remember the date. It was 10th of March. I pushed off to Bombay by train, appeared for the interview, and at the end of the day they said, will Mr. A and Mr. B please stay back? And the others, thank you very much, in a nice way. And I happened to be one of the Mr. A and Mr. B. They said, can you have a medical test? I said, that means chance hai. He said, otherwise we won't be doing a medical test. So I said, but I have to catch that Calcutta mail tonight at 9:30 in the night. I have to go back for Spring Festival. He said, young man, do you want a job or do you want a Spring Festival? I said, sir, if you are in Kharagpur, Spring Festival is very important. It's the only time more girls come from other colleges so that they... Otherwise, we had so few girls here in SN Hall that it is very, very difficult to... So he said, so what do you want to do? Do you want to stay or go? I said, I want to do both. And he said, okay, why don't you stay for the medical? We'll send you by aeroplane. I'd never been in an aeroplane in my life. And I said, this can't be true. It's better than the Spring Festival girls coming. I'm getting both. So I stayed back, did some medical test, and they gave me a big Dodge car with a driver with a peak cap and a red tie who drove me to the old Santa Cruz airport. And I went in those days I didn't mind flying Air India. Nowadays it's terrible, but in those days. I got into the Air India 707. The 707 had just been launched. I came back to Kharagpur, got off at Dum Dum Airport, and I think I went straight to Howrah station and took some train. At 12 o'clock, 11:30 in the night, I arrived at Hijli, and I got a rickshaw and I got to Vidyasagar Hall. My room number, I still remember, is 356 C block or something like that. And my gang was all there. You know, the funny thing about IIT people is that they seem to wake up at about 10 o'clock in the morning and they don't sleep till about 3 o'clock in the morning. They have very funny habits. I found it very difficult to adjust to those habits because I am a fellow who sleeps at 10 o'clock. I can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, coffee was being served on some very dodgy electric stubs that were there. And I arrived. And they said, hey, kya hua? So I said, I got a job. He says, kya bolta hai, you know, you're all bluff master. I said, I came back by plane. They said, ha, 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 ha. And then I showed them, I had this satranji, you know, with this rope tied around it, that had the baggage tag. I showed them. They said, hey, this fellow's really come back by plane. He may be right. Are maina koto? I said, $650. They said, chala. I was given a second cup of coffee and kept awake till 3 o'clock in the morning to celebrate, and that's how I got my job. But I forgot to tell you about the computer science part. When I went for my interview, there were 4 people. One of them was a Britisher who was a marketing director. And in my interview questions, he said, are you sure you want to be in the computer department? So I said, yes. He said, here's a pencil. Can you sell me this pencil? Now, if you are a B.Tech ECE from IIT Kharagpur, he said, kya kaam hai, sell me a pencil. So I said, okay. I've never sold anything before. I'm not a great salesman, but I'll try. Kuch usko agadam bagadam bol ke I gave him some gyan. And then he said, you know, I think you'll make a good salesman. I said, I don't know, but I don't want to be in the marketing department. I want to be in computers only. He said, that's fine. Hindustan Lever advertise for computers. You can join the computer department. But if ever you change your mind, knock on my door. I said, thank you. I hope that contingency will not arise. Thoda cocky tha. Bachpan hai na. Thoda akda hua tha. It so happened that I joined Hindustan Lever. I joined the computer department. And after 4.5 years, I said, yeah, isko karte karte mere baal pak jayenge. Because there was lots of difficulty. Nobody had seen a computer. The only person who was happy that I joined the computer department was my grandmother, who knew even less about computers. And the reason for her happiness was, even the chairman sits under a fan. You know, we had the long ceiling fans like this one, without an AC. There were no air conditioners. But computers required air conditioning. So I was inside this computer room. I took my grandmother and she said, that's the way my grandson should work. in an air-conditioned room, even if I don't understand what he's doing with all those disk drives and tape drives and so on. So I said, okay. 4.5 years later, I was fed up with the computer department, and I went and knocked, and I switched to marketing. I'm mentioning this story to you to illustrate the 3 things that you have to learn here. And when I think back, at that time I didn't think of it. First, you have to educate yourself. You have to acquire knowledge about subjects. That's what you come here for. The second is you must acquire knowledge of yourself. Hum kaun hai? Why am I here? And what is my purpose in life? It is not that 3 years later you'll become crystal clear, but you have to work on yourself. You don't get to know yourself. The person you know the least is yourself. When you get married, you'll know the second person you know least is your wife. But you've got a few years left for that. I was so committed to being in computer science that I couldn't think of anything else to do. I said I could spend the rest of my life writing autocode coding. But as time went along, I learned that I have to adapt myself. Getting knowledge is one thing, using the knowledge is a second thing. If you can't use the knowledge that you've got, and use the knowledge in a futuristic way, not in a past way. I was just now with your Mr. Achyutan Naik, Professor Achyutan Naik, which is the reliability and quality department school. And I was just discussing the same thing, that you might have, the department might have started with the techniques of operations management of 20 years ago. But you have to have a predictive capability and looking at the future. And that is very much to do with yourself. You have to adapt yourself every few years. And I don't want to go into what will happen when you have 30 or 40 or 50 because it's so far away. But it is a shape that is changing all the time. I am not what graduated from here 50 years ago. Thank God. You will not be whatever you are today. Some changes will be for the good, some will be for the bad. Can't help it. But you have to know what changes are happening to you. So first is to acquire knowledge, the second is to know yourself, and the third is relationships. People who study engineering have scant regard for humanities. And one of my greatest regrets is I did not pay attention to whatever little humanities IIT Kharagpur offered. And I have tried to make up for it in my subsequent career. And I do believe, I think Professor Priyadarshi is humanities? Dani, so I have to wave karo. Mr. Humanities. Because humanities is sitting at the intersection of psychology, philosophy, economics. It's whatever is not engineering is humanities. For an engineer, what is not engineering is humanities. It deals with the human being. That's why it's called humanities. And the human part is such an important part of your career, your life, your marriage, your everything. To be completely unschooled. Whatever humanities classes we had were the ones that we would adjust, as they say, and not deal with too seriously. But when I went into the real world, I found it's very important to have the right side of your brain developed. I had become a huge left brain guy. And I wasn't the only guy. I mean, all my classmates were like that. I suspect you're also headed in the same way. Unless you think of it today. You're in the first year, so you got 3-4 years to do something about it. Take interest. Whether you're taught this in a curriculum or do self-study. Read. I'm not asking you to be an MA in literature. But whatever literature you like, it may be in Hindi, it may be in Tamil, it may be in English. Read one literature book, one per year, one in 2 years, chalo. By the time you finish from here, finish 2 books. You like Shakespeare? Read it. Read the original, not the comic version that comes, Amar Chitra Katha, Read one book on psychology, again, not advanced psychology. the art of leadership, how you can influence other people. Go and chat with your humanities professors. I don't know how many professors. In those days we had 6 or 7. Now you must be having more, huh? 18? 28. I'll tell you one thing, this is funny about these teachers, They love it when the students come to them. But most of the time they are going to the students. If a student comes to a teacher, unless it's a very bad day for that teacher, which is occasional, happens to every human being, they feel very good. Hey, हमारा भी कोई कदर करता है. No, it's natural. I mean, it will happen to you tomorrow. And so teachers are no different from other human beings. If you go to Professor Priyadarshi, आपका नाम लगा देंगे थोड़ा, and say, we would like a small class, 10 of us, tell us a little bit about stories from literature which demonstrate how to lead human beings. I'll bet your bottom dollar, he may say, अरे बा जान खा रहे हैं ये लोग, लेकिन but he'll do it. Correct? I have committed him. And do this because there are, in your career, in your life, there are 2 things you must know very well. One is the stuff, operations management, marketing management, financial management, that you can learn. The second is you must know people, and that you can't be taught. You have to learn yourself. And had it not been that this realization came to me, that दुनिया कंप्यूटर से नहीं चलता है, बटन दबा के नहीं चलाएगा. If today you talk to the startup guys, they think बटन दबा के खाना भी अंदर चला जाएगा. But it doesn't work that way, human beings. So acquire knowledge, learn about yourself, learn about relationships, and that's what you should spend your time here over the next 5 years. So my second lesson is to begin the journey, given where you are, of learning to cope with uncertainty. You have come, most of you I would assume, from a protected environment of your family, your parents. You're now, for the first time in your life, or for some of you maybe the second time, in an own environment. It's unstructured. Life is uncertain. That's a reality you can't run away from. This is your first introduction to the uncertainty. Papa, Mama is not there. You have to make decisions. And I think not only did I grow up, I came here as a boy, I left as a young man. I've seen this with my children. The dramatic change that happened when they went to institutions like the IIT. And you may ask, what is this great uncertainty we are talking about? So I've got only 3 examples because I need to only illustrate them. The first is making choices when there are too many things to do. You can get mad here with the number of options that you have. I'm sure there are facilities here to not only learn mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. Within that, there will be so many subjects. But there's also a chance to play football, to play hockey, to go to Chedis. Chedis still exists, I think. Huh? Some form of Chedis must be existing anyway. To play the guitar, to join the music group, to do drama, to chat with the girls, because there are many more girls now. And today's girls at least chat. In my days, the girls didn't chat back, They were one-way traffic, So you learn to make decisions about what it is that you want to do. You try things which you then say, I don't like it. And that's a part of coping with uncertainty. Today's youngsters are faced with so many choices that it can drive you crazy. You try to do everything, you'll end up doing nothing. If you do only some things, you'll always have that feeling, yaar, wo agar karta to kya hota? But that's going to happen throughout your life. And so you learn to deal with that. The second example is, you will be paced with outstanding people. There are equally lucky people amongst all the, how much, 1400 people are here? Oh, they're all lucky guys. They're all damn good. They've all got whatever the score is in your entrance test. And suddenly you'll find that whereas you were second in school or first in school, now you're 25th. Because there are other smart guys who also come from other schools. You'll be partly threatened, partly tense, partly stressed, partly getting self-doubt, unless you are the fellow who's coming first or second. And I think whenever you want to improve the quality of a material, the only way to do it is to put more good material into it. You take a dilute solution, I have to put more of the solvent, of the product into it to dissolve, if I want to improve the concentration. If I want to become a world-class tennis player, I can't keep playing in the Hijli Open. Okay, I have to go and play in Calcutta, National, International, ATP, and play in Wimbledon. So there will be always better people than you. And the more often you're surrounded by people who are better than you, the day you feel you're surrounded by people who are all inferior to you, you're done. You better change where you are. Throughout your life, and IIT is the first time you'll have that experience, where you'll find so many good people, it is tough for you to stay up there. And if you do stay up there, and you do so for 5 years, as soon as you finish and go to do whatever else you do next, you may back to the square one. And the third thing that I learned here was adapting to diversity. I don't know if it happens these days, but it's amazing when I think back. I was born and raised in Calcutta. I had hardly moved out of Bengal. That's all I knew. Once in a while there was some family wedding, I'd go to Chennai, otherwise I was all the time here. There are people who came out of Punjab for the first time. There were people who came from Karnataka or Kerala for the first time. And they stayed in these hostels. Luckily we had Andhra cooks. I don't know if you still have Andhra cooks. So they will turn out some sambar and all. And I remember this conversation with a guy who said, I've come from Amritsar. The way he pronounced Amritsar was also funny for me. But I got used to the diversity. And he then says to me one day, अरे यार मुझे समझ में नहीं आता ये मद्रासी लोग का खाना है ये दाल में इतना इमली क्यों डाल देते हैं? His definition of sambar is dal with imli in it. Until the day they made Matar Paneer, and I had to comment on Matar Paneer to him, so we squared up our accounts. So, the diversity, this country is, I'm not a BJP guy, I'm not an RSS guy, I'm not wearing saffron, but it's an unbelievable country. And we just take it for granted because we were born here and it's part of it. I call this the world's only colloidal society. I'm sure you're all young enough to remember what's a colloid. If you don't, then you better go and do your homework. When you mix a solid into a liquid, it can go into solution, it can become a precipitate, and the third stage is colloid. Where things hang around together, they are still seen separately, and yet there's a phase difference and this is the world's only colloidal society. We don't realize it. You cannot run this country, it has not existed for 4,000 years, as anything but a colloidal society. So, when the Jews came to Kerala, they formed a Jewish community with their own practices. They would have names like Reuben, Abraham, Gopal, whatever. But they were part of the whole thing and yet they were separate. When Jesus died, St. Thomas sent an SMS to Kerala. He said, I'm coming. St. Thomas arrived on the coast of Kerala and he walked right across to Chennai, or Madras as it was called, and he lies, his cemetery is at St. Thomas Mount in Madras. He walked right across the continent and he converted people and people liked what he said. And so Christianity came here. And I think 20%, 25% of whatever of Kerala are Syrian Christians. And of course Christianity has come in many other ways. All the world's great religions came in only two places for some reason. It either happened in the Middle East or it happened in India. There is no other part of the world which has generated a world religion. The three monotheistic religions, which say there is only one God, came from the Middle East. Judaism, followed by Christianity, followed by Islam. And all the other religions, three of them specifically, I should say four, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism and Sikhism, came from here. And if you take these 7 religions, you cover the world. Somebody may say, I'm a Mormon, but that's a subset of Christian. So, though the Mormons may not agree with that, we have assimilated religion, we have assimilated communities, societies. When the Parsis arrived in Navsari, Jade Raja, who was a ruling king, said, oh, you fair-skinned people, you might have run away from Persia, but I can't let you mingle here, you'll marry our women and cause complications. And he said, bring me a glass of milk and some sugar. I'm sure some of you know the story. And they put the sugar into the milk and stirred it. He said, we will yet be separate and yet we will be mixed with you. And the Parsis have actually done though. They are mixed, they've done a lot of things in this wonderful country of ours, but they've also kept their genealogy separate, though it's getting more and more difficult as time goes along because there are few of them. So we are the world's only colloidal society, and that's a heritage that you get, and you will have that first-hand experience of that over here. So it's a great place to be in. Enjoy what you have here. You'll never find a more I shouldn't say you'll never find, but there are very few transformative experiences that will happen in your life. And enjoy the transformation. Don't be threatened by it. Don't let it get you tense. Enjoy it. The danger is I can go on, but I should shut up in the next few minutes. I just want to perhaps close with a last part of it, which is to say, ask yourself, why are you here? And some of you are here to say, I want to be a spectacular superstar. I want to win the Nobel Prize. I want to have a startup which will be worth $1 billion. I want to be a world authority on XYZ. And some of you will come here saying, hey, listen, I know my strengths and my weaknesses. I want to be part of a very strong team. I am damn good, but I don't think I'm a spectacular guy. Now the truth is that most of us are not spectacular people. We like to believe we are spectacular people, especially if you're from IIT, but you're not. Every startup entrepreneur thinks he's Steve Jobs' successor or Mark Zuckerberg's successor. इतने successor होते तो हिंदुस्तान कहाँ पहुँच जाता? There's no harm in aspiring, but as they say in Urdu, अपने औकात पे आ जाएंगे जब तजुर्बा हो जाता है, सब लोग. And that will happen to all of you. There's nothing wrong. Everybody is not to be a spectacular player because the planet cannot handle so many spectacular characters. It's not possible. So please understand. And therefore you must understand that the world has a place for everyone. Everyone. There are 7 billion people on this planet. Do you know how many people there were on this planet when Jesus Christ was walking around near Lebanon and Israel? How many? Anybody knows? Sorry? See, if you are in 3rd year IIT, you'll give an answer. कि गलत है कि सही है, कौन बोलने वाला है? But you are in 1st year, so you have not yet learned this art. I will give you the answer. There were 181 million people. See, I am 50 years out of IIT. I now have mastered the art of giving statistics which nobody can challenge, nor can they prove. But there's been research on this. I'm not making it up, in case you think so. There were 181 million people in this world, and population of India was 35 million in 0 AD. आज का देखो 7 billion people, सबके लिए जगह है. And you have your place in the world. And your transition here over the next 4 or 5 years is the process of discovering. Where do I belong? What are my strengths? Do I know myself? Do I have relationships? And so I loved this expression given in France once. And let me see if I can reproduce the French, because that will impress you. That's the only line in French I know. Vous allez trouver votre place. Impressive? Come on, you ought to clap. This happens when you dream of marrying a French girl but never succeeded, you know. It's okay. Vous allez trouver votre place, which means everyone has his own place. And so I visualize the sky above us as having different type of holes. And all of us are going around trying to find a hole into which we fit. सबके लिए जगह है. All the 7 billion people. ऐसा कोई इंसान नहीं है जिसके लिए जगह नहीं है. And you get job satisfaction, life satisfaction when you have found something that you fit in. Mother Teresa came from what's the name of the place? Skopje, and found her place in Calcutta. But many people in Calcutta never found that place. Some people have chosen to be teachers here, and they are very happy. Some people have gone abroad. Some people have been successful researchers. Some have not. But everybody is a success, provided they are fitted into their little place. You cannot judge success by money and shusha, as the Punjabis say. It has to be something that you feel good about. So, get really good at something and find mentors who can support you in that. And you would have set the pace for a wonderful life, provided you define what is a wonderful life. If you let other people define your life, you're going to have a tough time. So I want to close with this. When I was in 1954, so I must have been, 1960, I was probably 15 years old. I used to stay in the St. Xavier's Christian Hostel on Park Street, 30 Park Street. And when you are living on Park Street with a limited amount of pocket money, even to walk past Magnolia was too expensive, you know. So you stood outside and sort of just said, "Kabhi ek din aayega, andar mein jaane ki auqat milegi." All that you did it was to watch the little girls who were going by, because that was free. You didn't have to pay for it. But the father, the padri of the hostel, he said, "Son, don't waste your time walking around Park Street. Why don't you teach the slum children? They come Wednesdays, Fridays, something." I said, "Okay." So I was given a chalk piece, and now I could break it into small pieces and throw it at the kids who were not paying attention. Something that I had experienced as a student. I enjoyed teaching the slum children. I don't know if the slum children enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it. And early in my life, when I was 15, 16, I said, "I'll be a teacher." As I grew up, and I'm illustrating the story not to say I did something clever, but to say how your ideas about life and career will keep changing. And you should see a log of wood coming down the Ganga from Gangotri. जिस तरफ लहर जाता है उस लहर से चले जाते हैं. By the time I came to IIT, I said, I may not want to be a teacher full time, but I love teaching. When I got the job in Hindustan Lever, although I was in the computer department, right here in Netaji Auditorium, sitting where my friend in the red shirt is sitting, Professor Sanyal was sitting. He was my head of the department. God bless his soul, he's a wonderful man. And he fired the hell out of me. Hindustan Lever chakri korbe, dalda bikri korbe, ekhane hijli te eshe tumi dalda bikri korbe, ekhane electronics podar pore, are baba. And here I was in 7th heaven. I got 650 rupee job, and I got fired right in the middle of Netaji Auditorium with everybody listening, and there's a movie which I wish would start quickly. But I did it. But it always stayed in my head that I like teaching. And you can be teaching without being a teacher. You can play sport without being a sportsman. You can be an engineer without being called an engineer. You can do engineering without being an engineer. There's a subtle difference. And so when I joined my company, they had a very good practice in their training center of inviting people who are in the company for 5 years to share their experiences with those who are in the company for 0 years. It's like your final year students coming and speaking to you, or an alum of 1 or 2 years. And I said, this is my opportunity. I think I did a modest job of it. And since then, for the last 40 years in my career in Tatas and everywhere, I've always taken the opportunity to share and teach what little I know. Because the first part of your life is a gathering phase. You gather degrees, you gather money, you gather, you have a family. The second half of your life is a scattering phase. You must give back because khali haath aaye and khali haath jana to hai. And since I'm in the second half and you're in the first half, I don't want to have a vocabulary difference. You're in the gathering phase, gather well. But always remember, there's a place for yourself, and in finding that place, learn to enjoy what you're doing, and for God's sake, do what you enjoy. Nobody has been successful in the world by doing things he did not enjoy. I have not come across such a human being. I've seen many successful people who hated what they were doing. And I've seen many unsuccessful people who are trying to love what they are doing. So, thank you for having me here. I wish you well and all the best.